Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel. If you're new, welcome back if you aren't. I'm EDJ, and we're continuing with the Napoleonic War series by Epic History TV, and last time we witnessed Napoleon's lowest hour at his retreat from Russia, and now here we are at the road of Leipzig. You know, even though Napoleon and the Grand Armée were definitely, sorry, that circle was bugging me. So, even though we've witnessed Napoleon at his lowest, he's still Napoleon. Because I'm impressed, because after this, I believe Prussia and Russia are the two immediate threats as he's rebuilding his army. Getting a bunch of conscripts, a bunch of teenagers? Really young people. Completely trying to salvage an awful situation, and when Russia and Prussia unite to fight him, Napoleon still, he fights them off incredibly well, and even appears to be winning. It's not until Austria joins in, and then the Spanish campaign completely falls, that it finally all jumps on him, but for a while there, before Austria just decides to declare war on him again, Napoleon's incredibly, holding his own and winning, and especially considering his limited cavalry, his reduced speed, and the inexperience of his new rebuilt army, so yeah, it's just Napoleon, even with his back to the wall, still is, as an oversimplified put it, he's still Napoleon. Beyond impressive, but unfortunately, as we know, as history buffs, he's fighting a losing battle. Though there is a brief period where I think maybe could have won. Mainly, obviously, winning Leipzig would have helped, but if he mentions it, I'll talk about it. With that said, I don't really have much else to add. Let's just get right into it. I'm trying to pump through these videos. You might notice the past two videos, and this one, I'm wearing the same shirt because I'm recording them in bulk. I'm trying to get through this, guys, and yeah. So, without any further ado, let's just get right into it. Let's watch... Oh wait, if you want to watch this video without me talking or pausing, the link will be down in the description down below. And without any further ado, let's watch Napoleon in 1813, The Road to Leipzig. What a Okay. What a career Napoleon has ruined. Having gained so much glory, he could bestow peace on Europe. But he has not done so. The spell is broken. Dang, Alexander, that's quite the statement to say, but, you know, when talking about the Napoleonic Wars, a lot of people talk about it as a period of so much death and misery and suffering, and a lot of people put that on Napoleon, but Napoleon, not to say Napoleon's completely innocent, he obviously had a hand to play in that, but I feel like everyone's at fault in Europe. Britain wouldn't let it go, and we're constantly funding coalitions and making people want to fight Napoleon. You know, Austria wouldn't chill out either and constantly declared Napoleon. A lot of these coalition wars were just Napoleon defending himself, you know? So, I think everyone's at fault for the complete death and destruction. It can't all be Napoleon. You could blame Britain as much, because they wouldn't chill out with their hatred and constantly wanting to stick it to Napoleon. And, you know, there are certain instances where it is Napoleon's fault, like his invasions of Spain and Russia, but, it's not all on Napoleon. You can't just blame Napoleon for the bloodbath that was the Napoleonic Wars era. These European nations, you know, are also at fault for the lack of peace, you know, that was around. So, I don't know.
1812 had been a disastrous year for Napoleon. His invasion of Russia had led to the almost total destruction of an army of 500,000 men. Now Poland and Germany were wide open to Russian attack. Some advised Emperor Alexander that this was the time to make a favourable peace with Napoleon. Russia's own armies had been mauled and Western Russia devastated. But Alexander was determined to see Napoleon defeated for good, to free Europe from his clutches, and avenge Moscow's destruction by taking Paris. Napoleon's allies were deserting him. Prussian troops had already agreed a truce with the Russians. Schwarzenberg's corps marched back to Austria, which assumed a policy of watchful neutrality. Napoleon had left Marshal Murat in charge of the remnants of the army, but he left for the Kingdom of Naples.
Yeah, Murat, who had married, I think, Napoleon's sister, and Murat eventually joins against Napoleon. So yeah.
Hoping to cut a deal with the Allies that would let him keep his throne.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I can't blame Bernadotte, because when he ascended to the throne of Sweden, whatever loyalty he may have had towards Napoleon before, null and void. The man needed to look out at the best interest of his own people, and Napoleon had violated that through the invasion of Swedish Pomerania. And so, you know, like I said, I came into this series not liking Bernadotte. He's still probably my least favorite marshal, but at the same time, he didn't do anything wrong. Like, I can't just be like, traitor, and then, you know, hate Bernadotte, yeah, you know, it's like, he didn't owe anything to Napoleon at that point. You know, he needed to be the king of Sweden. He needed to be Swedish, not French, if that makes sense. You know, and like Murat, I won't say Murat feels more like a betrayal personally. I think because him and Napoleon were probably closer. But even then, I get Murat, like, you know, he's the king of Naples, and yeah, like I said, I just can't just say like, oh, traitors, you guys suck, Team Napoleon, you know, like, it's, yeah, it's just, I get it. It's sad, but I get it, you know? And I can't pretend that I wouldn't try to do the same. You know, if I were in Bernadotte's shoes, yeah, I feel like most people would have done what he did, like, yeah, you know?
He was replaced by Napoleon's stepson, Eugene, who'd proved himself a brave and able soldier in Russia, but was unused to independent command, and now faced odds of 4-1. As Russian forces advanced through Poland, he continued to retreat west, leaving garrisons to hold strategic fortresses, most of which were soon besieged. On the 7th of February, Russian troops entered Warsaw unopposed. Napoleon's Polish client state, the Duchy of Warsaw, effectively ceased to exist. 3 weeks later, Russian troops entered Berlin, while Sweden joined the Allies. Sweden was ruled by Napoleon's former Marshal Bernadotte, now officially known as Crown Prince Karl Johan. Many would accuse him of betraying Napoleon, but he'd always been clear that once he became Sweden's Crown Prince, he'd pursue Swedish interests, which is what he now claimed to do.
Yep.
In exchange for Norway, to be taken from France's ally Denmark, and £1 million from Britain, Bernadotte agreed to join what was now the 6th coalition against France since the Revolution, with an army of 30,000 troops. 10 days later, King Frederick William of Prussia declared war on France. It followed weeks of indecision. The king was widely seen as a weak character and terrified of Napoleon. But with guarantees of Russian military support, the return of lost territory, and enormous financial and material aid from Britain, he agreed to field an army of 80,000 men. On the 17th of March, he issued a proclamation to the people of Prussia and Germany, "An mein Volk," to my people, summoning them to fight for Prussia and Germany's honor, in what would soon be known as the German War of Liberation. The Prussian army had been greatly reformed since its humiliating defeat to Napoleon in 1806. A military commission headed by General von Scharnhorst had sacked nearly 200 old generals and abolished flogging, expanded recruitment and introduced exams for officers, and overhauled training, tactics and drill. When Napoleon met the new Prussian army in battle 2 months later, he remarked, "These animals have learned something."
Yep.
Small consolation, they'd learned most of it from him. This video is sponsored by...
Only a short time ago, I was the conqueror of the world, commanding the largest and finest army of modern times. That's all gone now. Yep.
As his enemies massed in Germany, Napoleon was in Paris, working tirelessly to build a new army with which to face them. 137,000 new conscripts joined the army, and laws passed to call up 100,000 more, while 40,000 veterans from the army in Spain, 16,000 Marines, and 80,000 men of the National Guard, a home defense force, were transferred to Germany. The new conscripts were nicknamed Marie-Louises, after Napoleon's young wife, who'd passed the new conscription laws in his absence. They were young and raw. 2/3 were teenagers, and there was a severe lack of experienced officers and NCOs. In short, the countless irreplaceable veterans now lying beneath Russian soil.
Yep.
There was also a critical shortage of cavalry, a crisis mocked by British satirists.
Strut. Look big and make your hobbies friends. Will make them believe there's cavalry in France. Freaking Britain, man. They would not chill. Like, calm down, Britain. He's already dead. Chill. You know? What do you think? Oh, man. They will make the Cossacks run. But you know, a lot of Napoleon's tactics relied heavily on cavalry and speed. So yeah, the loss of that did a lot, because he couldn't be as fast as he once was, you know?
It would take Napoleon longer to replace the many thousands of horses and trained horsemen who'd perished in Russia. When Napoleon left Paris for Germany in mid-April, the French situation was precarious. Eugene had been forced back behind the river Elbe to the fortified city of Magdeburg. Dresden, the capital of Saxony, had fallen to the Prussians. The Duchy of Mecklenburg-Schwerin became the first German state to defect from Napoleon's Confederation of the Rhine. Russian Cossacks raided as far as Hamburg, inspiring local revolts against French occupying forces. Meanwhile, Austria stood on the sidelines, so far declining to back either side. Napoleon's miraculous feat of organization meant he now had more than 200,000 troops in Germany. And the Emperor's personal magnetism was undimmed. The morale of his army was high. The Russians, on the other hand, lost their iconic commander, Field Marshal Kutuzov, to pneumonia on the 28th of April.
Oh, wow.
His role was taken over by General Wittgenstein. Russian troops were exhausted and far from home, their army weakened by the need to contain French garrisons across Poland and Germany. Prussia and Sweden had yet to fully mobilize their strength, and Allied forces barely mustered 100,000 men. They were now heavily outnumbered by Napoleon, and the French Emperor decided to strike quickly. He ordered Marshal Davout to Hamburg with 35,000 men to secure his northern flank. He would march against the Russian and Prussian forces converging on Leipzig to force a decisive battle. Victory would make Austria think twice about joining the Allies, allow him to rescue the 90,000 men trapped in garrisons across Germany and Poland, and re-establish his dominance over Europe.
If the art of war was only the art of not taking risk, glory would belong to mediocrities. We need a full triumph.
As Napoleon advanced on Leipzig, the Allies faced a predicament. To risk battle against Napoleon's larger army, or give up Germany without a fight, a potentially devastating blow to Allied morale and any chance of winning Austria over to their cause. Allied headquarters made the bold decision to attack. They knew most of Napoleon's army was made up of raw conscripts, that their own troops were better trained and had a great superiority in cavalry and artillery. The Allies agreed that as Napoleon crossed the Saale River, they would hit his right flank before he could concentrate the full mass of his forces. The two armies were on a collision course, but Napoleon's shortage of cavalry meant he lacked information about Allied movements. On the 1st of May, Marshal Bessières, commanding the cavalry in Murat's absence, was carrying out reconnaissance himself when he was hit by a cannonball and killed instantly. Bessières was the second of Napoleon's marshals to be killed in action, and like Lannes, an old comrade and trusted friend.
Yeah, Bessiers's been there for a while, dude.
The Allies were able to surprise Napoleon, falling on Marshal Ney's Third Corps near Lützen. Ney's troops had to cling on in the face of a Russian and Prussian onslaught, while Napoleon rapidly redirected his other corps to fall on the enemy's flanks. At one stage, Napoleon had to personally help rally routing troops as they broke in the face of determined Prussian assaults. But on the whole, his young conscripts fought with courage. And despite hours of savage fighting, Wittgenstein could not exploit his early advantage. As French reinforcements arrived, the battle turned against him. Towards dusk, the Allies were forced to break off the engagement, though they'd inflicted around 22,000 casualties, losing just half as many men. General von Scharnhorst, mortally wounded, was among them. Crucially, Napoleon's lack of cavalry meant he was unable to pursue the enemy, who retreated in good order. Expecting the Prussians to fall back on Berlin, Napoleon sent Marshal Ney in pursuit, while he continued east. But the Allied army stayed together.
Yeah, I think that lack of cavalry, Napoleon's unable to catch his enemies, and, probably, arguably, maybe he could have landed a decisive victory he so needed, So, yeah, that came back to the loss of just so much horses, came back to really hurt Napoleon at the end.
Withdrawing to a defensive position at Bautzen, deliberately close to the Austrian border, hoping to entice Schwarzenberg to intervene, and daring Napoleon to violate Austrian neutrality. Neither happened. Instead, Napoleon ordered Ney to swing south to fall on the Allies' northern flank, while he launched a frontal assault to pin them in place. The battle lasted 2 days, as French infantry struggled forward against the Prussian and Russian lines. But a misunderstanding over Ney's orders caused a delay that allowed the Allies to narrowly escape Napoleon's trap. Once more, the Allies fought with great determination and inflicted many more losses than they suffered.
Oh my goodness.
There were more.
Yeah, Napoleon's losing a lot of people he probably can't afford to lose at this point.
More casualties during the pursuit, including the next day General Duroc, Grand Marshal of the Palace, responsible for Napoleon's personal arrangements, and his closest surviving friend. Riding with Napoleon's staff, a freak cannon shot ricocheted off a tree and disemboweled him.
My goodness, Napoleon is just losing his friends left and right, dude. Man.
His slow, painful death deeply upset Napoleon. The Emperor continued his pursuit to Breslau, once again hindered by his lack of experienced cavalry, while Oudinot was sent north to take Berlin, but was held at Luckau by von Bülow's Prussian corps. On the 2nd of June, with both sides strained to breaking point, neutral Austria proposed a ceasefire, which, to the surprise of many, Napoleon accepted.
Yeah, I think there was speculation that Napoleon had pursued, he maybe could have won. Maybe. Again, there are a lot of factors to take into this, but yeah, Napoleon probably could have forced something, but he hesitated. And it's not so bad, because like I said, he has no cavalry. I mean, he has cavalry, but he's limited in terms of his speed, and he's on the back foot in a sense. I mean, he's still doing impressive, but in a sense, in terms of numbers and experience, yeah, I mean, numerically he's good, but again, that experience and lack of cavalry is hindering him, that I don't blame him for wanting to recoup at least a little, My eagles are again victorious, but my star is setting. Napoleon to General. Yeah.
The Armistice of Plaswitz would last more than 2 months, a period of intense diplomacy and military mobilization by both sides. Napoleon wanted time to rebuild his cavalry, a shortage of which had allowed the Allies to escape twice. But he also wanted to keep Austria on side, which he feared might join the Allies with 200,000 troops, even though Emperor Francis I was now his father-in-law, since Napoleon's marriage to his daughter Marie-Louise in 1810. Austrian Foreign Minister Clemens von Metternich, who'd become one of 19th century Europe's most influential statesmen, now took centre stage. Metternich wanted peace and to see Austria restored as a great European power, which meant Napoleon contained, but not crushed, which would hand too much power to Russia. In June, he travelled to Dresden to ask Napoleon to make concessions, while promising the Allies that if he did not, Austria would join them. But Napoleon dismissed Metternich's terms out of hand. He would not return the Illyrian provinces to Austria, agree to the repartition of Poland, or the breakup of the Confederation of the Rhine. All were out of the question. Napoleon famously threw his hat to the ground in fury. "Peace and war lie in your Majesty's hands," Metternich is said to have warned him. "Today you can still make peace. Tomorrow it may be too late." But Napoleon preferred war to what he called a humiliating peace.
Expect a defeat whenever the Emperor attacks in person. Attack and defeat his lieutenants whenever you can. Yeah, I think that meeting between, the that Austrian dude and Napoleon, that, that meeting, I think it's termed the Frankfurt Proposals. Okay, pause the video. Don't listen to that idiot on the screen talking about the Frankfurt Proposals. Hi everyone, it's me, EDJ from the future. I've already finished the Napoleon series. I've already begun working on the Pyrrhus series and the Julius Caesar series, so yeah, I've already kind of moved on from Napoleon. And the thing is, I was looking back, and here I notice I'm talking about the Frankfurt Proposals. The thing is, this isn't exactly the Frankfurt Proposals. The Frankfurt Proposals were, I believe, in November of 1813, way after Napoleon had already decisively lost at Leipzig and effectively been kicked out from Germany. So, yes, this long little talk I'm having here in the background is me talking about these things, even though, the term hadn't come up yet. This was just concessions between the foreign minister of Austria and Napoleon. So, yeah, my bad. I guess I just wanted to make this to help save everyone the hassle of correcting me there. And, yeah, you'll hear more about my thoughts of the Frankfurt Proposals. I believe in, Napoleon's Endgame, the Battle for France video. It's where Epic History TV directly mentions it by name. There you'll hear me talk about it, So, yeah, guys, that's all I have to say. And without any further ado, let's get back to the video. Let me just cut, I go on forever in this talk about the Frankfurt Proposals, so I'm about to save you all, over nearly 20 minutes. Yeah.
12th of August 1813, Austria joined the Sixth Coalition and declared war on France. The Allies now had a numerical advantage of 3-2, and a new strategy, the Trachenburg Plan. Recognizing Napoleon's genius, the Allies would avoid battle with the Emperor and instead target his marshals, threaten his flanks, and wear down French forces.
So the plan is don't fight Napoleon directly. Yeah, that was basically the plan. Don't fight Napoleon directly. And it worked beautifully. I love oversimplified, but yeah, you have to give it to Europe. They finally, after underestimating Napoleon so much in his early career, there's this respect that they have. Napoleon's a genius. Don't fight him. They finally recognized him as a military genius and decided to attack, his marshals, which to varying degrees are not geniuses on the caliber of Napoleon, mind you. I'm not saying his marshals suck, but except Davout. Davout is a genius on his own. The plan should have been don't fight Davout or Napoleon directly, but yeah, this is the best plan they could have gone with, quite frankly, and it works beautifully.
Until it was time to close in for the kill. Over the next few months, the coalition would also receive massive material support from Britain, including £8 million in silver and gold coin, 200 cannon with transport, 120,000 firearms, 18 million rounds of ammunition, 23,000 barrels of gunpowder, 30,000 swords and sabres, 150,000 uniforms, 175,000 pairs of boots, £1.5 million of beef, biscuit and flour, and 28,000 gallons of rum and brandy. The total value of British aid to the coalition in 1813 was £11.3 million. Today, worth around $500 million. Napoleon, meanwhile, had turned Dresden into a major supply depot, and strengthened his cavalry arm, though it remained a pale shadow of its glorious past. Murat returned to lead it, his secret approach to the Allies having been rebuffed. But when news arrived of King Joseph's disastrous defeat to Wellington's Anglo-Spanish-Portuguese army at the Battle of Vittoria, Napoleon had to send Marshal Soult, one of his best commanders, to salvage the situation. On the 15th of August, Napoleon left Dresden and advanced against what he considered the most urgent threat: the joint Prussian-Russian army of Silesia, commanded by General Gebhard von Blücher, soon to win the nickname Marshal Vorwärts, Marshal Forwards, for his aggressive leadership.
Yeah, we know Blücher, man.
But Blücher followed the new plan and retreated when he learned of Napoleon's advance. Napoleon then received news from Marshal Saint-Cyr, holding Dresden with 20,000 men, that Schwarzenberg's gigantic army of Bohemia was approaching, and the city and its supplies were in danger. Napoleon left Marshal MacDonald to keep an eye on Blücher, and raced back to Dresden, sending Van Damme's First Corps to threaten Schwarzenberg's communications. By the time the Allied assault began, enough reinforcements had arrived to fight off the attack. The next day, despite being heavily outnumbered, Napoleon ordered a counterattack. Struggling through mud and heavy rain, Marshal Murat's advance, supported by Victor's Second Corps, broke the Allied left flank and took 13,000 prisoners. The Allies had suffered a disastrous defeat because they'd ignored their own rule: don't take on Napoleon in battle.
Yeah, falter of the strategy, but goes to show you, man, Napoleon, even when he does not have the advantage, is still just so much above everyone. Like, at this point, he's just, like, above all the coalitions in terms of military genius. He's ahead of his time. Like, no joke, the man is another level completely.
But news soon arrived that turned the situation on its head. Marshal Oudinot had resumed his advance on Berlin with 66,000 men, but in 3 days of heavy combat around Grossbeeren, he was defeated by Bernadotte's Army of the North. Some of the most savage fighting was between Napoleon's Saxon allies and von Bülow's Prussians, two German states that for now remained on opposing sides. 3 days later, at the Katzbach River, Blücher inflicted a crushing defeat on Marshal MacDonald, driving some French troops into the river itself. MacDonald lost 30,000 men, 3 Eagles and 100 guns, for Blücher's 22,000 casualties. 3 days after Napoleon's victory at Dresden, as Van Damme's corps pursued the Allies, it became trapped in wooded valleys around Kulm and was overrun. General Van Damme himself was dragged from his horse by Cossacks, as he and 10,000 of his men were made prisoner. Napoleon sent Ney to take over from Oudinot, who engaged Bülow's Prussian corps at Dennewitz. The Prussians, fighting to save Berlin, held their own until Russian and Swedish reinforcements arrived to turn the battle decisively in the Allies' favor.
I believe a big cause of Napoleon abdicating, though Napoleon wanted to fight till the bitter end, I believe it was just his marshals were defeated, and it eventually just led to Napoleon throwing in the towel. And, the marshals are great, man. Like, Napoleon's marshals are, great, but, yeah, it's like, it's telling that they're willing to fight the marshals, but not Napoleon single-handed himself, you know? And most of them aren't on Napoleon's caliber, I would reckon. You know, most of them aren't on Napoleon's level. Good, but you know, yeah, not on Napoleon's level, and again, they're fighting against the odds themselves, and yeah, this plan from the coalition to not fight Napoleon, genius. The best plan they could have ever come up with.
Ney's retreat became a rout, with the loss of another 22,000 men. Napoleon's brilliant victory at Dresden had been completely overturned in just 10 days. The Allied plan was working. Napoleon became increasingly frustrated as Allied armies withdrew wherever he advanced, and advanced wherever he was not. His teenage conscripts were exhausted by constant marching, and famished as Saxony had been stripped bare of supplies. Thousands fell sick, thousands more deserted. Russian and Prussian light troops were now operating behind Napoleon's army, harassing his communications with France. Many of Napoleon's marshals advised him to pull back to the River Rhine. But Napoleon wasn't giving up Germany without a fight.
There will inevitably be a great battle at Leipzig. Oh boy, Napoleon, you were right on the money there.
By October 1813, Napoleon faced 250,000 Allied troops in Germany, converging on him from 3 directions. 900 miles away, Field Marshal Wellington was crossing the Bidassoa River into France, the first enemy army on French soil in nearly 20 years. While the Kingdom of Bavaria, a French ally since the days of Austerlitz, had secretly agreed to switch sides and would declare war on France on the 14th of October. Napoleon planned to defend the line of the River Elbe. But the arrival of General Bennigsen's reserve Russian army freed up Blücher, who suddenly marched to join forces with Bernadotte and forced his way across the Elbe at Wartenburg. Napoleon went north with 150,000 men, seeking the decisive battle that would change his fortunes. But once more, Blücher narrowly escaped him. Then came news from Murat, who'd been left with 67,000 men to cover Schwarzenberg. The enemy had bypassed Dresden and was heading for Leipzig. If the city fell, Napoleon would be cut off from France. Once more, he was advised to fall back to the Rhine. But instead, Napoleon ordered all his forces to concentrate at Leipzig.
Yeah, he probably should have pulled back. I think Napoleon definitely probably should have pulled back there. But I don't know. I'm only saying that because, you know, we know how Leipzig turns out.
He would risk everything in one great battle to decide the fate of his empire and the fate of Europe. Thank you.
So yeah, that's it, guys. Next time we'll be... Wait, give me a second. Yeah, we'll be looking at Wellington's victory at Vittoria, and then we'll be seeing Leipzig, so... Yeah, I'll be seeing you guys next time then. Bye. Bye, everyone.